It's a DACCCAST. It's a DACCCAST. It's a DACCCAST. DACCCAST. Cause I said it's a DACCCAST. It's a DACCCAST. It's a DACCCAST. 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 DACCCAST.
You're listening to DACCAST, produced by students of Danville Area Community College. And now your hosts, Kia and Keegan.
Yo, 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 it's Kia and Keegan here from the basement of the clock tower.
Here on DACCAST, we get to know the familiar faces we see all over campus in hopes that students at DAC and members of the community get to know each other a little better.
With that being said, we are here with Dr. Wendy Brown. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being here. I know it was a little difficult. Sorry about that on my part.
It's all right. It's the times.
Yeah.
Gotta kind of expect these weird things that happen right now.
I'm not great with technology. Okay, so introduce yourself and tell us your role here at DAC. What do you do?
Okay, well, my name is Dr. Wendy Brown, and I am a professor of biological sciences. I teach a variety of different biology classes. Microbiology is my specialty. That's what I got my degree in, my PhD in the pathogenesis of chlamydia. So microbiology is really my passion, but I teach a variety of different biological science classes, including human biology, life science, environmental biology. So anything biology related, I'm all for it.
Yeah. Okay, so before COVID happened, what did a normal day look like for you?
Teaching both in class and online. So I've been teaching online for, I would say 12 years. I was the first one in the department to develop a hybrid biology class in which the students did all their coursework online, and then they would come in for lab. And then recently I developed an all online biology so that they can actually do the labs at home using a lab kit. So I've always been teaching in a combination of both in person as well as online.
Yeah. So you said out of all your classes that your favorite was, did you say microbiology?
So in terms of favorites, I love them all for different reasons. My specialty is microbiology. I'm really passionate about understanding and teaching about microorganisms, the good, the bad, and the ugly that our associations are with these microorganisms. It is one of my favorites, but I can't say it's my absolute favorite because I really love teaching the non-major biology classes as well, especially the face-to-face ones, because these are the students that come to me completely not wanting to be there.
Yeah.
Who wants to take a biology class if you're going into English or business? Pretty much no one. So I get these students and they're like, we don't want to be here. And I just love turning that attitude around, making this class as fun as possible. One of the classes that they wind up, a lot of them saying, this has actually been my favorite class to attend at DACC because I try to make it so interactive and so relevant to them. I love microbiology because it's my forte, it's my specialty, but I really love teaching the non-major classes as well.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you. I am not a science fan whatsoever, and I did take a class online with you. What was it, human biology?
Yes, yeah. So you had the take-home lab kit where you had to do the labs at home.
I was a little scared, I'm not gonna lie, but it was really easy and it was really well planned out, and you could tell you put a lot of effort into it. So
well, good to hear. And I designed those lab kits myself because I used to have the students purchase these commercial kits, but they were $150+ plus. Oh
my goodness!
And I'm like, I can do this for a lot cheaper, and I think a lot better. So I, over a couple years, spent some time developing my own labs and developing these at-home kits that the students wouldn't even have to pay for. They can just check it out at the beginning of the semester, use the equipment, return it at the end of the semester.
Yeah, it was super easy. So which class of yours are you most proud of? I mean, the way that you've taken the time to set them up.
Wow. That's a tough one. Again, I am so proud of how my courses have developed over the 18 years that I've been at DAC. And when I see, and I do see some of my first students that I had 18 years ago, actually one of them is a neighbor of mine, just, a couple blocks away. And when I saw her for the first time after maybe 12 years, I said, you know what, I'm sorry. Because I know when I first came here, I taught at a level that was way up there.
Yeah.
And I was not the best instructor because, it was my very first time being an instructor. You got to kind of figure out what works and what doesn't.
Yeah.
And so I apologize to those students that had me 18 years ago because it was a tough course back then. And I really didn't put a lot of effort into doing group activities and making things relevant.
Yeah.
I just didn't really know how. So I think the proudest thing that I have accomplished is making all of my courses as relevant to the student population as possible. For my nursing students who take my microbiology class, that is making this microbiology course as relevant to their careers as I possibly can. For the non-majors, it's making it relevant so that they understand biology at least on the surface level, and they can make educated decisions when they have to vote on particular topics or they have to take a side on particular topics, or they can understand both points of view and make educated decisions. So that's, I think, what I'm most proud of. So some of the things that I've added to make these classes as fun and relevant as possible, I would say the proudest thing I've done is the service learning projects. Yeah. I think it's so important for students to get involved in their environment.
Yeah.
And so if you take my Biology 100 class, you are required to do a service learning project. And these projects, the students can come up with them on their own. Some of them do. Some of them I have suggestions for. So for instance, one that I've done for years is the freshwater mussel survey. We work with the Nature Conservancy of Illinois, and we go to the Sangamon River. If the students choose this particular project, and I usually have several that choose it every year, we go to the Sangamon River, and we gather all the freshwater mussels out of the river in a particular section. We are in the river for an hour, and this is, it's not like you see them and pick them up. You are on your hands and knees, digging your hands into the sediment to feel for these mussels and then pull them out. You put them in a bag, and after an hour, we go back on shore and we catalog all of the different freshwater mussels that we've collected. And there are, usually we get about 15, 16 different species, and we count how many of each. We can age, so how long have these been developing in this particular area. We age them, we catalog them, we throw them back in the river. And that is really to look to see how does the population change over time. Because the populations that we have kind of also give us an idea of what the health of that river is.
Yeah.
So we also look to see are any of these endangered mussel species coming to become less or more in numbers.
Yeah.
So it's things like that these students, non-major biology students, would never do. But because I have them do these and choose a service learning project, they get the opportunity to do something that they've never done before. And I've had students contact me, semesters afterwards and ask, can I still go on this mussel survey with you? So it's things like that I'm really proud of that make the class relevant to the student population.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
So take us back to your experience in college, like what colleges you attended and how that time was.
Okay, so, it's funny because people ask me, well, where are you from?
Yeah,
and I'm
that's
well,
one question that I had for you.
Yeah, I don't know anymore because I've been around.
Yeah.
I've been to so many places. I started out at the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh. majoring in biology. I then had the opportunity to do the college program, the Disney World College Program.
Wow.
Which is a fabulous program, and I've actually recommended it to several of my students. Several of my students have gone throughout the years. Actually, my son, who just graduated from Illinois State, he also went and did the college program just a couple years ago. So after a year at the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh, I then went to Orlando, Florida to work at Disney World for a semester. Fell in love with it. Loved that place so much that I decided, you know what, I'm not going back. I'm going to stay here. And so I wound up staying and working for Disney World for 2 years and attending Valencia Community College, where I got my associate's degree at that point. At that point, I'm like, okay, I do need to continue my education. I can't just work for Disney World the rest of my life as much as I wanted to. So then I went back to Wisconsin to finish my bachelor's degree. Then moved out to Oregon because all of my family was migrating out to the West Coast. My sister lives in Seattle. My mom lives in Oregon. My brother lives in Hawaii. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go out there and go to school. So I went to Oregon State University for 4 years. I got my PhD studying the pathogenesis of chlamydia.
Wow.
I went out there with the expectation that I was going to be a researcher. I did not want to go into teaching. The last thing I wanted to do was teach. My mom was a professor, and my mom would always say, hey, you should go into teaching. I think you would be a great professor. And I was a little bit of a rebel child. I did not want to do anything my mom did or anything that she thought would be a good idea. So I'm like, no, I'm going to go into research. First semester in graduate school, I was a teaching assistant for one of the labs, 48 students in a lab. And I stepped in front of the class and I started giving my introduction to the lab. And I'm like, oh, dang it. I love this. Mom was right again. I hated it, but it really solidified that, truly what I want to do is go into teaching. And I wanted to do that full time. And as much as I loved doing research and, I felt like I was a very good researcher, I loved teaching so much more. And so I wanted to make sure that that was my full-time job once I got my PhD. And so that's what then brought me to Danville, looking for a job. I just put a lot of applications out there, and I had a lot of family in Chicago. And so I thought, well, that's probably a good place to apply. It's close to Chicago. And so Danville Area Community College was the first one that offered me the job. And, I've been here 18 years.
Wow.
Gotcha. So you said you got your PhD at Oregon State.
Mm-hmm.
What was Corvallis like? Because I've heard that's a great college
town.
Oh,
my goodness. Beautiful, beautiful place. So it's a very earthy place. People are wonderful. It's a beautiful area. It's a very expensive place to live.
Yeah.
So any place on the West Coast, it's going to be pretty expensive. But I lived in the Willamette Valley, which is a valley between two mountain ranges. And so you could look to the west and see the mountains. You can look to the east and see the mountains. And my mom lived on the coast. And so I would often just go out to the coast and go visit her. And the Oregon coast, it's not a beachy coast, it's a rocky coast.
Yeah.
So it was a great place to live. The temperature there is very mild. So if you think about Seattle temperature, it's very similar.
Gotcha.
Very warm, sunny summers, and then cool, rainy winters. And I remember my first year out there, you don't see the sun starting in, I would say October all the way through March. You don't see the sun.
Yeah.
And it's a constant mist. And it was actually very depressing the first year, trying to get used to not experiencing that sunlight, because that does affect our health quite a bit. So the first year was a little depressing in terms of not seeing the sun, but you get used to it.
Yeah.
Great place. Love it very much.
Gotcha.
So I can tell that you are a person who travels a lot, who sees a lot of different parts, and I've heard that you've seen quite a bit. Is that true?
Yeah, so I would say throughout my lifetime, I've been to about 30 different countries. I was very
Wow.
fortunate to travel a lot with my parents at a young age. They taught statistical processing control, quality control in many different countries. And so I spent, several weeks, a month in India. I've spent a month in China. And then we went to a lot of places just for fun. So Egypt, for instance, was one of my favorite trips. The Soviet Union, all over Europe. Just this summer I went on a cruise to the Mediterranean. So I was in Turkey and Greece and Montenegro. And yeah, so I am very fortunate and appreciate all of the places that I have been able to travel. It is a wonderful world out there, and to be able to experience it and not just, look at it in TV shows and movies.
Yeah.
I mean, it's undescribable to
Yeah.
being able to experience the different cultures.
So is there any few countries that really just stood out to you that you really think that everyone should go see if you had to choose?
Oh, it's hard to pick. Australia is just one of those places. The people there are extremely friendly. The area is just beautiful. I would say my favorite trip, though, was to Egypt. Honestly, I would be a little leery about going to Egypt today, but during that time, it was just a fabulous trip to see things that are thousands of years old, and to experience that very different culture than ours. I would say that was, to ride on a camel in the desert. It's just something that you don't forget.
Yeah. So how many, and it's just a curious question, how many of the 7 wonders have you seen?
Oh, honestly, I don't know.
You don't know?
I know that the pyramids are one, right?
I think so.
Okay.
So you saw the pyramids?
I did, yes,
What was that like?
Again, you are dropped off, you're taken to the middle of the desert, but yet you can see the city off in the distance. So it's a really surreal experience. And, we did a cruise down the Nile. And to be on the Nile and to see the people along the way just using the Nile for, gathering water or washing clothes. And, it's just such a different culture than what we experience here in the U.S. It's
That's so cool.
It's unbelievable, yeah.
You like to travel, and I also heard that you like bees.
Yeah, so one of my newest passions, beekeeping. We had the sustainability farm for quite some time out on Daisy Lane, and we were growing crops out there. We had a native prairie plot, and I thought, well, one thing that's really in desperate need is bees in this area because the great loss of the bee population, and they're very much importance in pollinating. And so I thought, well, let me check this out. Let me see. I've never thought about beekeeping, but let me take a class, see how I feel about it. I am allergic to bees, so that, concerned me a little bit. But I took the class, and after I was done, I took the class at Long Lane Honeybee Farm, just about 15 minutes away from here. And I'm like, you know what? I can do this. This isn't that bad. I could do this. So I went ahead and I ordered myself a package of bees and a hive. And a package of bees means that you get 1 queen and 10,000 worker bees.
Wow.
And you pick up this little plastic container. And, I've never worked with bees before. Bees typically scare me because I am allergic. When I get stung, I swell. I swell pretty big.
Yeah.
So I made sure I had my EpiPens available. And so I go to pick up this container of bees, and, you got to take it home. And so what do? You put it in your car. So I'm driving to the place where I set up the hive with 10,000 bees in my car. If that's not intimidating, I don't know what is. So I got to the farm to install the bees. And, I took a class, right? You take a class, you hear what they have to say. Yeah, I must be an expert already. I did bring someone with me who had installed a bee. He actually took the class with me. Craig Potter, he was the ag instructor here at DAC. He's now retired, but he took the class as well. And so he came out there with me to install my bees. He had already installed his bees in his hive. And so, remembering what I was supposed to do, I fully suited up, and Craig is telling me what I should be doing, and he's like, okay, take the cork out to get those bees out. And so I'm, shaking as I do this, and I'm pulling out this giant cork to get the 10,000 potentially stinging bees out of this package and into the hive. And he's like, okay, what are you waiting for? Go ahead, dump them in. Turn it over and start dumping them. I said, you need to wait a minute, okay? I panicked. I said, I need a minute here, okay? There's bees flying all over me. I need a minute. So I took a few deep breaths. I had my few seconds of just relaxing, and then I went for it. I just took them and started, you turn them over and you kind of just
Oh my
bang
goodness.
them upside down, and you sprayed them with sugar water so they can't fly so well, and but they're everywhere, and it was a crazy experience.
So are you that allergic to them that the EpiPen was for, like, your bee allergy?
Yeah, so I do swell, and I swell pretty big. So if I were to be stung on my arm, for instance, my entire arm will swell. And so I don't have the anaphylactic response yet, but if I were to be stung, for instance, in the throat, that could be a very dire situation. So that's why I do have that EpiPen just in case of that type of situation. This last year I got stung. I get stung every once in a while. I do wear a full body suit, but this one time I didn't wear the full body suit. And it was very early in the spring, and I got stung in both thighs.
Oh, no.
Both of them. And so, of course, for the next week, my thighs were just, huge. I mean, they're already large, but now they're extra large. And yeah, so that was an uncomfortable week that I had to deal with these bee stings. But it's worth it. It's worth it. I love it. It's one of the service learning projects for my students. So it's one of the projects that my students can choose to come out and work with the bees. And I've had several students wanting to do this, not just for the service learning project, but also just to do it just because. Yeah. And so what they also help me with is then extracting the frames once they're filled with honey, taking them back to DAC, and then extracting the honey. They also help me with bottling the honey. They make the labels for the honey, and then they usually also help me to sell the honey as a fundraiser. So the students really do the entire project from collecting to distributing the honey during the service learning project.
So with that fundraiser, what are you raising money for?
Just to maintain the bees.
Okay.
So equipment, buying more frames, buying more boxes, buying suits. They start to degrade a little bit. Sometimes I need to replace some things. So really it's just to help fund the continuation of the bee project. Currently we have 2 Langstroth hives. Those are the ones that are stacked. We have a flow hive, and that was the hive that was invented in Australia a few years back. It's not very popular here in the U.S., so I thought, well, let me try it out. It's really nice, especially for when I bring younger kids out to see the bees, because we don't have to open the hive to collect honey. All we have to do really is kind of turn a knob type of thing, and the honey flows right out of the hive. So that's been a lot of fun to have. I also have a bar hive, which, again, you don't see a whole lot of those. And recently, Becky Doss, she works here, her husband built us a observation hive. And so that's one in which we can just take some windows off and you can see what's happening in the hive. You can see all the different stages, the different types of bees. And so, again, that's really great for demonstration for when kids come. So we could talk about what bees do and their significance.
Yeah.
So if somebody wanted to go and see this, how would they? I mean, it's obviously not just open for the public whenever.
Right.
Would they have to be a part of one of your classes to see what's going on?
Not necessarily. So if there is someone who really wants to learn more about beekeeping or learn more about the society of bees, I'm always glad to work with them, to show them off and to suit them up, because I can't go out there by myself.
Yeah.
And so I'm always looking for someone to tag along with me as I am looking at these bees. So yeah, just contacting me by email is a great way to work something out with me. Same thing with the reptiles. I've done reptile road shows with our, pythons and turtles and lizards. And so when an organization wants me to bring the reptiles out, they just send me an email and we make arrangements for bringing our various reptiles out to them.
Interesting.
So you said before, after Oregon State, that you applied to a bunch of different jobs, and I'm guessing it was all over the country. You sent out applications.
Yeah. So one thing about higher education is you really sometimes have to be open to where you live, right? You have to make sure that you're going to where the jobs are available. And I did have, and I do still have a husband at that time. And I still the same husband and a child at that time. So, it's a little bit challenging to uproot everyone to move across the country. But my husband's a chef, so he was willing to move wherever I wanted to move to, because he could get a job wherever. And he works for college chefs in Urbana.
I was going to say, I heard he had a pretty cool job.
Yeah.
Does
so
really cool things.
So I eat well, right?
Yeah.
You got a chef or a husband, you eat really well. And he works for the College Chefs. It's a organization. It's actually now across the U.S. And this company cooks for fraternities and sororities at different colleges. So this one is at the University of Illinois Champaign-Urbana. And he's been working with them for 10 years now, I think. It's a great chef job because, he's cooking for fraternity guys Monday through Friday. He doesn't have to work weekends. He doesn't have to work nights. I love it. Yeah. So he was really willing to move wherever. And so I did apply to some places out in Oregon, in Washington, because I had family there, and then in Wisconsin, because that's where I had gone to school, and then in Illinois. So those were my main areas that I applied. Okay. I think I put a couple other applications, maybe a couple in Florida, and I think one in Georgia. But you really have to be open to going to where the job market is for you. So.
Gotcha. So when DAC offered you the job, what was it about this institution that really was intriguing?
I like the idea that they were very flexible about what I might want to teach in the future. Because I did interview at another school, and they were not. They were like, no, these are the set classes. There's no really flexibility. This is how they're going to be taught. These are the classes that will be taught. And one of the great things about Danville was that they were like, we are open to introducing new types of classes. We're open to you introducing new types of ways of teaching, service learning projects, for instance. My students also do, in the microbiology class, we do a mini research project where they discover antibiotics from soil microbes. And so the curriculum was very flexible, and I can kind of adjust the curriculum to how I thought would be most beneficial to students. So I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed the small town aspect of Danville, rather than some of the places that I had been applying were big cities. So it's really a kind of a family-oriented a city here.
Yeah.
And I thought, honestly, when I first applied out here, I'm like, maybe a couple years. I'll give it a couple years. I want to get some teaching experience. I'm going to give it a couple years, and I'll probably go someplace else. But they got me, and they got me good. I have not wanted to leave. I've actually been offered jobs at some other places. Parkland offered me a job a couple years ago. I was offered a job in Washington State. Wow. And I'm like, I have it so good here. The DACC treats me so well.
Yeah.
And I love the environment. I love the people. I am most likely going to be retiring from here.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And I really like how you touched on DAC being a very open college, because I agree with you. I think that they are so open to seeing growth here, and that's something really special. And so were you the founder of the Student Science Club? Is that something that you started? Is that something DAC gave you the opportunity?
Yeah, so there was, before I came, there was a science club that was run by some of the professors that were here. That went away, and so I did attempt to bring it back a few years later. And we did have an active club for 3 years. It's kind of died out since. So it's kind of one of those clubs that when there is interest, it's on the books. So if there's a student population that would say, hey, we want to start the science club again, and we want to do these types of projects, it's available to get up and running once again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you started the Family Science Night too.
Oh yes, the Family Science Night. Yeah, that's a big undertaking. Something I'm very passionate about is spreading science knowledge to the grade schools because it starts there. If you want people to go into science, you got to get their interest at a very young age.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And unfortunately, a lot of times students don't get that interest during grade school because, a lot of times there's so many things to teach that science sometimes doesn't get to be done hands-on. And so what I thought to do was just create all these different hands-on activities that students can come and participate in. And so what I had are 50 different hands-on activities that are all sorts of different STEM subjects, so science, technology, engineering, math, and they're geared for kind of K through 8th grade, and it's just one night where they can come and experience all these different activities. So they can make slime, they can interact with the reptiles, they can build a skeleton out of noodles, they can design rockets and shoot them off. So it's a very intense night of science.
Probably really busy.
It's exhausting, and every year I'm, in the couple days before it, I'm like, oh, never again. This is so much work. I'm never doing this again. And then the night comes, and it's fabulous, and everyone is telling me how much they're enjoying it and how appreciative they are, and they're like, can I come back next week? And then I'm like, okay, yes, this is why I do this.
Yeah.
Because it really does open the students' eyes to how enjoyable science really can be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
You've made a lot of strides within your science department here at DAC. Are there any personal goals in your career that you would want to see?
Oh, continuing on, I'm not a very funny person. I'm not hugely clever. But what I am is passionate. What I am is fun. What I am is knowledgeable. And so that's what I build upon. And going forward, from my very first year, my goal has always been to improve my teaching. My teaching will never be perfect. And so my goal is to constantly do what I need to do to improve it, to make it more enjoyable, to make it a better learning environment, to make students more enthusiastic about what they're learning. And that will never stop until the day I retire, finding out what are those high impact teaching skills that I need to employ in the classroom to make sure that I am kind of going with the times. Our students change. The population changes. It's really sad because I keep getting older. My students keep staying the same age. It's a little depressing.
Yeah.
But they're also evolving how they learn. And so it's important that I also evolve how I teach the subjects. So I will never stop learning. I will never stop evolving the way that I teach the subject because my students change and the technology changes and the topics change, and I have to make sure that I am doing what I need to do to make sure that this class is as relevant yet enjoyable so the students actually want to learn it as possible. So that's really my goal, is to continue to evolve the courses that I teach to best fit the students. I love education. I continue to learn myself. I'm always going to conferences. I am often take different classes to make sure that I continue my education as well. Education never stops. It's something that you should plan to do for the rest of your life, and I enjoy learning, and so that's something that I will continue to do for the rest of my life.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I think we're good.
Yeah, I think all we have left is DAC Attack.
Yeah. Rapid fire questions.
Oh my goodness,
get
I'm
ready.
scared.
So I tell this to every guest. We're gonna ask you between two questions, and you have to pick one. Okay.
I'm picking one question.
You're picking one answer. to a
Oh,
question.
okay. Gotcha.
I said that badly, but we've had people go on for 2 minutes on an answer when it's supposed to be a one-word answer, and we've had people pick both options.
Both options, yeah.
So you have to deviate.
Yikes.
Okay.
Okay, here we go.
All right. So now we are going to go into our rapid fire questions called DAC Attack.
1, 2, 3, 4. Deck attack, 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 deck attack.
I mean, that's it?
West Coast or Midwest?
Gosh, that you might even start with such a
It's the first one every time.
Oh my gosh. Well, Midwest to work, West Coast to visit.
Okay.
Mornings or evenings?
Mornings, absolutely. A morning person, 5 o'clock every morning.
Biology or physics?
Oh, no. Really? You
No
got to ask
question.
that one.
No
It is
question.
biology, hands down.
Sweet or savory?
Sweet.
Chocolate or vanilla?
Chocolate.
Oregon State or Wisconsin?
Gosh, these are tough. They're such great places. I'm going to say Oregon because I have family out there still.
There
Beaver.
you go.
Yes.
Summer or winter?
Summer.
Beach or mountains?
These are tough. Beach.
Gotcha.
Eat in or dine out?
Eat in.
And since you're so well traveled, road trips or flights?
Flights, absolutely. I get car sick.
Oh, no.
Not enjoying the road trip so much.
So you're never like, hey, let's go out to Oregon and drive.
We do, because that's the only way that you can hit all of the national parks along the way.
Well, there you go.
But do I dread it? Yes.
Alrighty. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Brown. We really appreciated having you.
Well, this has been a lot of fun, so
Yeah, I
I
agree.
really appreciate you
you for
having
coming.
me.
Thank you guys for listening. This has been
Stay classy, Jaguars.